This is Intelligent Psycho back in here with another TV show review and another movie review, as I'm going to talk about later. The movie called The Black Bag, but here I'm going to talk about season 2 review of Severance. I'm going to just read you the article and I'm going to give you my thoughts also about the show as I have watched it as well, and go from there. My pros and my cons and my overall score. So, for Severance season 2, mysterious and important. Severance season 2 is groundbreaking. The return of macro data team and severed floor. And at first, season's insane cliffhanger, fans left dying to find out what would happen next. And with almost a 3 year gap between seasons due to 2023 WGA and SAG after the strikes, this season is highly anticipated, and I was personally most excited and I have ever seen and been into a season on television, and it did not disappoint. The season follows Mark, Helly, Dylan, and Irving copying with the big revelation that they discovered at the end of the season's one plan over time contingency, and that there is a lot more just than that. Though with the twist, with every turn, with the twist in every turn, new characters, huge reveals, numerous new questions, and beautifully crafted characters and storytelling. And I will also be losing my mind if I didn't mention how beautiful the whole season looks, with absolutely stunning cinematography for Jessica Lee Gain, David Lanzenberg, and Susie Lavelle, and I found myself pausing every episode multiple points just to reveal how wonderfully shot the show is. And many shows get by with mediocre cinematography, but it was clearly made a priority this season. This, along with some of the most beautifully crafted editing I've ever seen, results such as a unique and creative looking show like nothing ever seen before. And I also know that besides directing numerous episodes, Ben Stiller had a lot to do with this production show of this show, and he deserves all the acclaim he's getting. And his work on Severance has been getting noticed all over the internet, and without him, the show wouldn't look as nearly unique as special as it is. Theodore Shapiro composes another beautiful score this season and beautifully accompanied every scene it was in, and it was clear that it was a deep understanding of the show and really helps to capture the exact feel this show is going for. The most underappreciated movie member has to be Dan Erickson, who has not only created the show but has written multiple episodes. And we're seeing people talking about Severance. I don't see his name mentioned enough. And it goes without saying that all his contribution to Severance has been incredible. And if you like season one, I will find it extremely difficult not to love this new season. While season one had a slow burn that it kept fans waiting and waiting for big reveals, this season kept you on your toes. You had no idea what could happen at any moment, what was lurking around the corner, waiting to change everything. And I was more than impressed with this season's storytelling ability and how wonderfully performed all the acting is throughout. The only criticism I have revolved around structuring and some loose threads that don't even remotely stop the show from being as entertaining as it is. Everything about the season feels like it was taken to the next level, and I'm very excited to see what they do for the next season. And I will now be moving away from from that part of the review. And yeah, this is a spoiler warning for anybody who has not seen uh, season one or two of Severance, so this is a spoiler warning. So here, this season has to film with brim of multiple storylines between almost all of the main characters. While last season switched from innies and outies fluidly, the season jumps from a lot more between different characters. While this isn't necessarily a problem, it is something that caught me by surprise as I watched. So myself getting into before I get into spoiler warning, yeah, the innies and outies as they flowed into season one beautifully, you know, looking at what we saw from Mark, Helly, Dylan, and Irving, all of them, deciding of their team, deciding what their factions, what their teams are from innies and outies. And of course, the left of the cliffhanger from Mark, his overall character arc had evolved and it began evolving from beginning of the show from season one all the way to now. and then of course Helly and Dylan, how their characters kind of change, devolve and evolve wherever you want to see it. It was kind of just overall seeing where they were going and where they were kind of heading towards. And I also felt like not only the cinematography was really really good and stunning, I felt like the overall visuals and the overall the effects of it was really poignant and on point. And I do feel as all also the production of the show really adds a lot of value. But also, I wanted to add something too. I do think because of the contingency, it may turn it from season one. It had turned fans off overall. This season, it didn't have those kind of contingencies whatsoever. It was a couple of episodes like towards the latter half, especially the goat scene, which I'll talk about also later, which that also has a spoiler warning too, um, as I'm reading this article. And yeah, it shows me that they are taking their time to really go through and go in depth when it comes to the overall show, when it comes to the overall feeling of relating to these characters in this office, right? Knowing like things that happen. And I do like the world building, the mind bending and the world building and the overall like structure and how it's laid out as well. Because it kind of has a little bit of feel of X Files. Kind of like meets with the traction of the Office. So that's what it kind of really gives me the overall feeling of. So I really do enjoy it about the show. So the pros I got to say, the biggest pros I got to say is the characters, it's the visuals, and I would say the overall storytelling as well when it comes to just just overall where we've begun with all four of our main cast and how they're kind of just evolved, you know, with these terms of the innie and outie and everything. So I feel like that pretty much puts together and revolves around where we're heading and where we're going. Um, don't really have a whole lot of cons with the show as at all. The only thing I probably would say is I wish some of these episodes, I wish the show was running on a little bit longer because I feel like there's a lot more to tell as well. So that would be the only thing I would probably say that was more of like a nitpick, not really a con, it was more like a nitpick. So there would be with that. So here's the spoiler warning. The season is filled to brim with storylines between almost all of the main characters, while last season could switch from innies and outies fluidly. This season just was more than different. The main character Mark, his storyline was one I'm most interested in seeing. I was most nervous for Mark, knowing that Gemma is alive and a huge reveal, but I had no idea that they were going to take it. And this left me very skeptical, and I absolutely love how the writers played it out. Mark's any search for Gemma, as I found really engaging. I love how quickly he was sidetracked by Helena, whom he thought it was Helly, and it plays a crucial role in his arc this season. And the aftermath of Helena reveal puts him into the worst state he's ever been mentally. From this, though, he was able to rekindle his love for Helly and realize that they are capable of everything their Audis are. And beginning of this season, we see how Marks and he still sees his Audi as being more than just him because he isn't any at the end, but by the end, we see it vastly changed. And his final decision to choose Helly over Gemma makes his own decision, and he chooses who he loves, not for those who Audi loves. And though it's a huge betrayal that is bound to have substantial consequences, it's clear by the end he is confident in his decision as the future remains uncertain. With Mark's Audi, though, I originally did not like him reintegrating, and I always assumed that he was going to reintegrate eventually. But to see it happen so early this season was really scary. Despite Mark reintegrated so early, I was absolutely floored by how well paced and well executed the whole plot line was. A lot of people were upset, but it was slow, and I honestly liked it more. And since we could slowly how the process worked, I've heard some people complain that they would change their how reintegration worked to better fit the story, but the writers subtly explain this difference. And Reg Hobby explains how she figured out how to do it correctly, so it was bound to be different from PD's. Otherwise, we have gotten the same result from Mark dying like PD did, so it makes sense for it to work a little differently. Yeah, kind of Mark finding his any Gemma, and was looking and discovering his any Gemma, and then of course knowing and the fact that he thought he saw the visual scope of Helena, his Audi, and kind of he realizes by the towards the end of the show he realized he is an any at the end of the day. So like this spoiler breakdown, it was kind of interesting to kind of tell where Mark overall his mental space is, his mentality, his overall like the imagery of where he was at is, and you kind of saw he was just broken. He was just kind of broken up in between parts and spaces. Mark's relationship with Gemma was also further explored, which was captivating to watch and made the finale so much more beautiful and tragic by the end. In episode 7, Chikaya Bardo would gorgeously showcases their love and what he lost and when he had thought she died. The episode forever changed the way I looked at the show, and it makes watching season 1 so much sad since we know exactly what he lost. Also, having Cold Harbor connected with them together was such a great mystery that I enjoyed trying to solve this whole season. Overall, Adam Scott does an excellent job this season with both Innie and Outie Mark, somehow surpassing his incredible performance last season, and he is perfect as the face of Severance. As the show grows, I love seeing all the praise he is getting. Helly is a way crazier storyline because of what I expected with Helena literally stealing the first 4 episodes from her. Her struggling to comprehend the horrible Helena really is, and having to share a body that is really hard to watch at times. And it's also really interesting. I love how it became hard for the audience and characters to trust her, as I had to begin paying more attention to her after episode 4, Rose Hollow, and I love seeing how her storyline wrapped up with her fully accepting how matter how much she hates it, and she will always be in that Egan. And it's only further explored as Jane talks how much he sees Kara within Helly and more than Elena, confusing both her and me as well. Well, I'm not sure where exactly this is headed, and I'm excited to see how this plays in part of this in the next season. Though there were many complications between Ellie and Mark, but especially after Mark had sex with Helena by accident, and it was really glad to see their plot not drop. By the end of the season, I have found more of the dynamic to be most enjoyable to watch. Dylan's story originally revolves around him finding the experts hall with Irving, but after episode 4, he abandons this and focuses on the meeting with Audie's wife Gretchen. And while this is irritating to watch, and I thought it made sense for the character since he had lost his best friend, he was looking to replace that wonderful feeling of having a family that Irving instilled in him, and it made his growth in the season all more engaging. Instead of coping with the loss of his in an appropriate way, he buries it deep down and puts all of his time and his effort into Gretchen. And this comes to bite him in the back, as Gretchen has to leave him to stay with his Audi, causing Dylan to quit. Seeing in his return in the finale, though, I thought perfectly ended his arc, especially since he finally stood up to Milchick. And my favorite part of the storyline, perfectly shown in the finale, is appropriate way to communicate with any. Innies are constantly feeling a lack of control of their lives and obtaining a sense of freedom as the main part of the entire show. And also seeing Dylan's Audi give his Innie the choice of staying or not is really powerful and contrasted perfectly how Mark's Audi talks to his Innie. And Mark's Audi tries to force his Innie to do what he wants, resulting in a cliffhanger ending that left Mark's Audi future uncertain. So I'm glad they kind of add in the finale of this and towards the tail end, from Mark's Audi, and it ties resulting from what the cliffhanger ending that happened in the last episode. Determining Mark's future where it's gonna go. Dylan, of course, his love for Gretchen, from the start, he kind of just puts it into and puts it all of it in full circle and perspective. So I really like that part as well. Irvin's storyline took a major turn in episode 4 when he was fired for revealing that Helly was not only an Egan, but also Helena the whole time. And Irvin's storyline I found most moved the slowest, and I was very confused where it would end up. And watching him converse with Bert Audi, and especially Bert husband Fields, and it was really interesting, and it made Bert a way more interesting character than I thought he would be. And Irving's storyline didn't have a lot of substance to it. I'm glad they didn't abandon him entirely for after his death in episode 4. I can only hope his story becomes more important the next season, as I think he deserves more than all he got in the latter half of the season. And John Turturro was given a lot of work for the first half of the season, and it showed the whole time, especially in episode 4. He was incredible to watch, and I was really impressed with his work. Only wish he was given more screen time in the second half of the season, but after his innie was fired, it makes sense. Milchick was surprisingly a fantastic subplot. Seems to fail to understand what it takes to be a floor manager and tries to force Mark to do his work with the new team. It fails miserably. Tremel Tillman is given a way bigger plot spotlight this season and takes advantage of every second of it. Is one of my favorite characters in the first season, and his character only gets even better. And the finale sees the intel that Milchick trapped with all the innies that in on the severed floor, but I am more thrilled to see where his character ends up. The show better keep the seasonal, tradition of Milchick dancing in season 3, and it's a highlight of every time it happens. And Patricia Arquette, while not nearly as prominent in this season as after being absent for so many episodes, she proves in episode 8, Sweet Vitriol, that she can be a powerful voice. And Corbell is actually one of my least favorite characters last season. And while I didn't think this has changed, and it's not because of Arquette's acting, and I just think that other characters I just enjoy watching more, with the big reveal of her creating the Severance procedure, and I expect her to play a bigger role next season. I've seen people having many issues with Irvin and Dylan storylines, for saying that they didn't progress the story much. Look over their storylines, though. I have to say I somewhat disagree. While I understand people's complaints, I thought these subplots did a phenomenal job at complementing and being in a conversation with Mark's main plot. And they display beautifully the difference between innies and outies, but also how similar they really are. And that's another a really good way of putting it. When I mean the storytelling, deciphering, decoding, the severance procedure. They did that a really good job in this season, deciphering and depicting the innies and outies characters. Irving and Dylan's storyline, of course, Bert and Irving's conversation. In episode 7, episode 6, and I think they led to more of it in episode 7 as well. I really do like that part as well. Irving's storyline, of course, revealing that Helly being Helena, and Egan. I thought that was crazy. I thought that was something wild and, just absolutely, bonkers. I really do love that part about, the show as well. And I do love the fact that this season really depicts and decodes all of the characters, breaking them down by piece and really showing where we're going to be heading moving forward. So, like I said before, before the spoilers with the pros and the cons, my rating for the show, I would have to give it overall a solid 9.3 out of 10. It's a really dang good show. I really advise a lot of people who have not been watching this, please watch this show, because it definitely is worth. It's definitely worth the price of admission, man. So, thank you guys for watching this part of the stream. So now I'm gonna go into my other part of the movie review, and that is for this movie called Black Bag, and this stars Kate Blanchett as Catherine St. John, and then of course Michael Fassbender as the intelligence agent called George Woodhouse. So his beloved wife Catherine is suspected of betraying the nation. Intelligence agent George Woodhouse faces the ultimate test: loyalty to his marriage or his country. So this stars so this stars Kate Blanchett as Catherine St. John, the wife of George Woodhouse, played by Michael Fassbender, and these two working for an intelligence agency. They are doing like assignments, crazy assignments, crazy rogue missions, for in order for them to get back good results, everything to try to find this mysterious black bag product that they've been wanted to seek discovery for. This is directed by Steven Soderbergh, and I haven't really been as big of a fan of Steven Soderbergh films. He's a really solid filmmaker, don't get me wrong, but some of the films I haven't really been the biggest fans of, as of recently. And I was kind of like not necessarily on the fence for this one because I do like all of the actors in here. Also, Pierce Brosnan plays in here. He plays as Arthur Stegiltz. Naomi Harris plays Dr. Zoe Vaughn. Tom Burke plays Freddie Smalls. His accent is the accent in here he gives off in the movie, and also the accents I'll get to in my complaints and my cons with the film, because that was my biggest con with the film as well, um, which I really didn't care for, but I'll get to that later on. But and then of course Marissa Abella, who plays Carissa DeBose. She also was in this TV series called Industry, and she was also in a movie um, that was the biopic of Amy Winehouse, which I actually did enjoy her character performance in that. And she also plays a good role in here as well. She was another really good positive person in the film as well. So with this film going into it, what are my thoughts? So this film, don't expect this to be super high octane with a whole lot of action, a whole lot of explosions, explosiveness. There's only a couple of action moments, action packed moments, action sequences, and it happens in the beginning when it was a car explosion. Then it happens with a tower, a building that starts to fall down. That's the only thing you'll see in the movie. It is not that much in action. There was a lot of exposition and a lot of dialogue. So expect that to be in the film. A lot of exposition, a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversations throughout the film, and leads into more. It felt like more of a mystery, erotic kind of thriller, um, and that will probably maybe turn people off in some instances. But for me, skeptical in certain things coming into it, because I'm like, certain times, certain dialogue led driven movies may not be always cracked up where it's to be, and me kind of feeling skeptical about Steven Soderbergh movies recently. But here, I absolutely enjoyed this movie a lot. This film was absolutely sensational. Um, if you have not watched this movie, I would advise you to watch this movie immediately. This is definitely one of those movies that should not extend to any long time and any length in any runtime being over 2.5 hours. This is a perfect runtime, really good casting. The casting was amazing. The visuals, the cinematography was absolutely incredible, um, and really shot well done. Didn't feel like it's on a green screen at all. It felt like everything was there, and felt like everything was so on point. I really did enjoy not only the cast, everything just really came together. The three biggest pros in the movie is number one, the storytelling and the overall plot. The plot synopsis. I really feel like the overall plot and the overall storytelling was really beautiful. You really can connect to it. You can really honestly relate to working for the intelligence community and how much they, get a lot of reporting, to get a lot of things, you know, a lot of like a documentation, a lot of funnies on their plate, and they got to do things in a way where it makes it more worthwhile. So that would be a thing that I would be saying. That would be a thing that's a con. I mean, excuse me, as a pro. That would be my main pro is the storytelling, the overall plot. It really feels very much authentic. Another thing I would say is a pro is the cast. Obviously, the cast played by Michael Fassbender and Kate Blanchett did their thing. Naomi Harris, Pierce Brosnan, uh, and Marissa Abela. Everybody did their thing in this movie. Everybody did their thing. Their performances was really outstanding. And also, another thing I would say is the pro in the movie. I would say is really overall to me the biggest pro in the movie is really just the overall dialogue, the overall conversations. It felt like you can really be inside, in these agencies, in these overall in these offices, having a conversation, having a dialogue with them, and trying to solve these particular these spy hunt missions, solving these crimes, solving cases. It felt like the conversations really just added a little bit more of a theme, added a little bit more cinematic theme and thematic, and it added a lot more substance to it. So I really did enjoy that part about the movie as well, man. Really, really kept me engaged. Really, really kept me interested. So, yeah, those are my three biggest pros. Now, the only thing I would say is a con in the movie is there is no action in the movie. So, with no action in the movie, with no let action in the movie, no fight sequences, no action like set pieces, nothing, anything remotely even come close to that in the movie, which that's why the runtime was very short. That would be the major thing I would say is what draws this film back and what scales the film back for most audiences and for even myself. That would be the major drawback for the movie is I would say the action sequences kind of really did not do its justice for me. And overall, I really thought that that kind of took it back and it took the engagement a little bit, in certain elements away from it. So that would be the major thing that I would say is a issue um, that could be for most people who are not really fans of dialogue-driven movies. So that would be a thing that would kind of be a drawback. But overall, my thoughts about the movie in general, enjoyed this movie a lot. I really dug every one of the performances in here. They all have a way of keeping me overall engaged, keeping me entertained, also keeping me, moved and touched. And as well as I do like the story, I do like the storytelling, I do like the overall subplots. It really kept me focused on what's going on and wanting to wonder what will happen next, man. So my rating for the film would probably give this a solid 8 out of 10. I would definitely give this a solid 8 out of 10. And if I had to rate this out of 5 uh, star rating, I would probably give this a 4 out of 5. It's a really solid movie, man. I definitely enjoyed this one. Would I rush to go see this out in the theaters? I don't know about that. But if you want to go see it, probably go and see it. If you are a fan of dialogue-driven movies, you definitely will like this one. Definitely go out and see it if you're a fan of that one and of dialogue-driven movies. Go out to see it in the theaters. It's well worth it. But if you are like myself, who wants to get out, wants to go and enjoy, wants to go out and wants to go out to the movie theaters and enjoy a movie like that. But if you want to stay at home and watch it on streaming platforms, watch it on, Hulu, HBO Max, or Disney. I mean, not Disney, but Netflix or Hulu, Apple TV Plus. Yeah, watch it on there if you find a way of watching on there somewhere. But yeah, check this movie out, man. You really, really will like it. And so yeah, those are my overall thoughts about these two these things the TV series Severance and of course the movie Black Bag. So what you guys think about the movies if you have seen them? What you think about the movie if you have seen it, and what you think about the TV show Severance if you have seen it? Tell me what you guys think. To check it out, and I am out of here. Peace.